right. Well, cheers.
Cheers,
Welcome
Chris.
to the inaugural episode of the Reluctant Somm Season 2.
Thank you so much.
My first interview with video, so I apologize for my extra awkward behavior today.
No, thank you so much for the invitation.
Let's see. So, Genaro, I'm excited to have you here. My first kind of people that I reached out to are people that I think of as friends and people that I think of as fairly adept when it comes to wine, people that are fairly knowledgeable. And I've had pretty limited conversations with you before, so this will kind of just be like a get to know each other for whoever's watching. And we'll talk a little bit about wine, but kind of talk about your life, your journey.
Course.
And yeah, I mean, how'd you get started? Where did you, I know you're from Spain,
Yeah.
but maybe kind of start us with your wine journey.
Yeah. So I'm from Galicia. I'm from La Coruña. That is the northwest part of Galicia. It's a small town. And when I was in high school, I was a pretty bad student, and my mom was always like, or you study or you work, and you have to choose, right? So I was 14 years old. I didn't like to study, so my mom worked in this restaurant where they had like a lot of people every day, like 400 people, 500 people, a lot of weddings. And my mom was like, okay, so you're going to start to work with me, right? You're going to help at home. You're going to help bring some money home. And I worked first time with her, and I love it so much. I remember I like it to be like that busy, like always like helping the guests, helping like requesting, like, and I realized that I love hospitality so much. I love restaurants. So I decided to study in a gastronomy school.
Cool.
And in this gastronomy school, it was one material that it was wine knowledge.
Okay.
So they kind of give us a little touch of wine knowledge, mainly Galicia, mainly Spain, right? But there it was where I found what it was wine, what it was the actually high-end hospitality, right? And after the institute, it was 2 years. The course was 2 years. So once you finish, you have to do kind of like a stage or practice somewhere. So I had the opportunity to go to Mugarit, to a restaurant in the Basque Country. And when the teacher asked me if I would want to go there, I was like, of course, like
And how old are you at this point?
I was 17 years old.
17.
Yeah.
So you've already been working in restaurants. You've already taken classes at gastronomy school.
Yeah.
And studied wine
Yes.
at 17 years old. And now
Yeah.
you're going to the Basque countryside for, is it somewhat like a stage or is it like a full position?
The first 3 months were like a stage.
I see.
Yeah. And after the first month, they told me they want to hire me. So I was like, of course. So I finished I finished my stage, and then they hired me there, and I spent almost 3 years in the Basque Country, and there in Mugarit was where I really understood what it was the high end and what it was wine, right? I passed from don't know anything about restaurants, or like know that you study for 2 years in this school, that you think that you know a little bit, and then you go to this restaurant where there is like 50 people working in the kitchen, there is 30 people working in the front of the house. there is a team of like 12 or 10 different sommeliers, like super young sommelier. They're like, at that time I think they were like 25, 26, and they were like advanced, or 35, or they were like
killing it,
preparing the diploma. They were
Yeah,
preparing like
wow.
the Spanish competition. So they were like huge leaders, right? So there it was where I understood what wine it was.
kind of the pinnacle, or kind
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
how steep the climb could be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so it's funny that your mom told you kind of like like think or work or like study or work. My dad was similar. My dad was a plumber, and and I was very bad in school as well. And we lived in the mountains in Southern California, and it would snow, and we would be shoveling the sidewalk, shoveling the driveway. It was a very steep driveway, and my dad would stand behind me and he'd say, "Shovel or think, shovel." Or think, right? Until I got my grades good. And then he would say, okay, now you can use the snowblower. Okay. Right? It was like I had to earn the snowblower with better grades. But, you know, similarly. And it's amazing that you were able to start in the hospitality industry at that age. I started running food when I was 16 years old. And I kind of enjoyed like taking care of people. My family is very like act of service for like love and taking care of people and like making their night and like making them have a good experience like really warmed my heart, right? But I didn't get into wine until I was 19, and it was only because I had to buy wine for a restaurant. I was like, I don't know shit. And in Texas you can taste when you're 18 if you're responsible for the list.
Okay.
But I mean, what's the drinking age in Spain? I mean, I guess you could study without drinking, right?
Yes.
But how did you kind of skirt the system?
So the legal age is 18 years old.
Okay.
Right? But you can work in hospitality, I believe at any age after 14 with your parents' consent.
Wow.
And then Spain works a little different than here. The laws are there, but you know what I mean.
The ABC is not.
The ABC
is not fucking with you.
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool. And so, like, when you were in the gastronomy class, I mean, they obviously knew that you were underage. I mean, take me through kind of like what that looked like. Gastronomy school in Galicia at 15.
Yeah, so I started school being 14 years old.
14.
Yeah, because I stopped high school after the first year. So I went to high school. I was in a pretty bad mentality. Like I was like, this is not for me. I don't like to study. I was just doing like bad things in life, right? Like just and when I first went to work with my mom, I discovered that I love that so much. So I also like sports. So I applied for 2 different schools, one for sports and one for gastronomy.
Awesome.
And the sports I didn't have enough points, right, to get into. So I went to the second option, that it was hospitality. But the first year of hospitality was kind of like a basic things. So there were a lot of tendrils, like a lot of like different classes that you had you had to take. So one of them maybe was like learn how to iron, right?
Okay.
And it was like iron clothes, like cloths, and maybe you were like for like 3 hours iron clothes, right?
Wow. Jeez.
Yes, or like I don't know, like learning like different human resources that you had to like different laws that you had to learn, and a lot of like psychology about the guest. And then in the second year you can like go to more active positions, where the school had like 2 different rooms. One, it was like a bar that kind of like wanted to represent a real bar, and another was a restaurant with like 3-4 tables, right?
Cool.
So they show you. I had a very good teachers, very classic old school teachers. So they were very intense. So like if you had like a long hair, they were like things that here is impossible
you can get away with.
Yes. Yeah. So there was like, if you have long hair, it's like you're gonna take the school tomorrow. Don't come to school. You know, you have like a brace or something. Take the brace out, or you are out of the school.
Yeah.
Like, very, very classic things. And so I finished that. I finished the first year, and I went out of my. I went to Galicia, but to another kind of like region to work in a hotel, because one of the teachers knew kind of like the maitre d' of this hotel. It was like a 5-star hotel. It was great.
Sick.
And So I went for summertime to work there, and after I finished there, I went to the second year. I finished the second year, and one of the teachers knew uh, one of the head Somms and Mugarit, so I kind of had the opportunity to go there.
I see.
It was like the entire school had the it was one position for the entire school.
Wow.
So they did like a competition, and I don't know why, but they chose me.
That's awesome. Hey.
And I went. So
whether it was skill or whether it was dumb luck,
Yeah.
I'm happy you're here.
yeah,
Okay, cool. So you, I mean, you'll probably be one of the more rare ones in my interviews that started at such a young age and kind of like, it seems like hospitality spoke to you from the
Yes.
minute you started, right? Taking care of people. Also the hustle. I think that's one thing that like I really love and that I miss. And I'm on the wine sales side of things, right? But I miss kind of that like pressure to perform. And when I was young, I worked for a guy named Paco Vargas in Galveston, Texas.
yeah,
Restaurants Rudy and Paco's. Galveston, it's a beach town. You wouldn't think it'd be fancy. But he similarly would be like, your shirt's not ironed, go home. Like, your hair's messy, go home. You didn't shave. He had this old razor that he would make you go shave in the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
Like, nasty. And if you showed up and, you know, like, he would quiz you on the food items and you didn't know the food items, same thing. Take a week off, like, you know. But then it was messing with your money. It wasn't just school, right? It was like, you don't make money this week, right? Yeah. So it was kind of this like this high pressure excellence, and I think I miss that a lot.
yes,
Let's see. Okay, so your mom was kind of the impetus to your journey through the hospitality industry and then through the wine industry in a way, because wine and hospitality are often so deeply linked. And then, so when you left the Basque Countryside, is that when you came to the U.S.?
No, so I left Basque Countryside in 2020 after it was kind of like COVID.
Okay.
After COVID, or in the middle of COVID, I left Basque Country. Not because in any specific reason. I left because in Spain they were saying that if you work for a company, by law the company had to pay your salary because of the COVID situation.
I see.
Even if you work or not. Right. So at the same time, I received another job offer. So I wanted to continue at Mugarit. But after a talk with my mom, I felt very bad taking like advantage of like getting paid.
The system kind
exactly,
of.
kind of like getting paid for without be working.
Right.
Having another opportunity to work and get money. So I left Basque Country in a very great situation, and I went to another restaurant in Galicia. It was like kind of like popping up, coming up. And I went as a wine director there, and we won the one Michelin star. And after we won the one Michelin star, I received this call to open a wine bar in Madrid. And it was one of the greatest projects where I've been. I get this call saying like that someone wants to invest in a super mega project, wine bar in Madrid. And they were looking for a management positions. Someone from Mugarit gave me my contact. So I was like, of course, let's do an interview. And like, so we jumped in an interview, and they were saying like, oh, we have already a general manager or a wine director that oversee everything, but we're looking for someone that kind of helps that person.
Okay.
To also manage the company. So I was like, all right, that's perfect. Like, let's do that. I was not looking for a management position. I was just looking to learn as much as I can.
Taste wine. That's the fun side. The management side sucks. Yeah. The other side's the most fun.
I was looking to open bottles, try bottles, and like have fun. And it was very funny because they say, I think you know the person that is managing everything. I was like, ooh, who is it? So it comes out that the person that I will work with is one of the head Somms Mugarit.
Oh wow!
So we got together again opening this project.
That's awesome.
So it was awesome because
Yeah.
we had like this amazing relationship, and we both were like very hungry to get like the best wine bar ever, and like we're like bringing all these crazy ideas. We were both from Galicia. We were like all very young, and like we got together a team, 2 more people from Mugarit. So we were 4 people
Wow.
from that we were together.
And Mugarit's closed at this time still?
Yeah, it's close
Oh, yeah,
still.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and we got together 4 people that were before together. So we had all like a lot of like chemistry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we opened, and it blew up. Like it was so crazy. Like right now it's considered the best wine bar in Spain.
Wow.
Probably one of the best wine bars in the world.
Yeah.
It has like 10,000 reference.
Can you say the name just so for people that are going?
Of course, it's called Berria,
Berria.
Berria,
Okay.
wine bar, and it's considered one of the best wine bars in the world. It has like 10,000 reference, more than 3 million in stocks.
Wow.
It's like it has crazy reference, you know,
Yeah.
and like it has like something very different that is like more than 100 reference by the glass. So you can like try like I don't know like Chateau d'Yquem, Mouton Rothschild, like all these like crazy producers by the glass.
And how do they do that? Are they using Corvin program? Or?
We when we start we use Corvin, and
see.
I believe they are still using Corvin.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's almost the only way you can get away with it. I feel like sometimes I go places and they have like 22 wines by the glass, 26 wines by the glass. I'm like, how do you do that without waste?
You have to
right?
use
Like
Corvin,
you need a Corvin for anything more than that, for sure.
This company is Teleferic. It's a Spanish company called Teleferic Barcelona. So after like 10 interviews, like it was like very intense. I got the job, and I started the process with the visa, and I came to the I came to the US.
Great.
To work in Teleferic.
I see.
Yes.
And where is this? I don't think I know.
So Teleferic is a Spanish project. It's a project from Barcelona.
Okay.
And I believe in the 1995 or like 96, they opened the first restaurant, or 2000, they opened the first restaurant in Walnut Creek.
Oh.
And then they expand, and now they're expanding a lot. They have one in Palo Alto, they have one in Los Gatos.
Wow.
They open one in LA. They open a market in LA as well. And I believe they're opening one in Seattle. Like, I don't want to like confirm, but I think they're opening one in Seattle.
Yeah.
So
Breaking news, everybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they're
Crushing it.
crushing it.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
they're crushing
That's
it.
awesome. And so what is there? So it sounds like there's a lot of locations. Is it stylistically, I mean, while it's probably different from Berria, I mean, stylistically, like what kind of restaurant? Is it slightly more casual? Is it tapas? I mean, like...
Yeah, Teleferic is tapas.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's very family style. It's all based in Spanish. In Spain, like they have like a Spanish wine program.
Cool.
All the food is based in Spain. So, and it's more like family style. Berria is also family style, but the main project of Berria is the wine. And then you have food to accompany the wine.
I see.
Right.
Right.
The main thing is the wine.
Right.
And then
It's a wine
food.
bar, and
Exactly.
this other one is kind of like a Spanish tapas restaurant.
Exactly.
With a solid wine program.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, great. And so then do you have autonomy of the list when you take over? Do you get to like pick the wines for the program, or is it kind of handed to you, or?
Yeah. No, actually it was pretty different. Like,
Okay.
It was a little different that what I expect when I came,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when I came, they had already a wine director,
I see.
and the duties were like very different. The ones that I was expecting when I was coming, but I had the opportunity to suggest and like help the wine director.
Great.
So he was very open, and he was like very like nice person.
Was he American?
No, he's Spanish.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
All the management is coming from
Good. Okay.
comes from
Good,
Spain.
good.
Yeah,
I want to make sure it's not like, some American guy's like, yeah, I'm putting, on a Cadorno by the glass or something like that. Not that it's like okay, it's a bad brand in some ways, but it's not a bad brand because it
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least introduces people to kava. At least introduces to somebody like inexpensive sparkling
Yeah, yeah.
compared to Dom Perignon or
Yeah,
Cristal,
exactly.
right? It's the
Yeah, yeah.
gateway wine. I feel that way about Barefoot
Yes.
and about, you know, Gallo and all those brands. Is
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not something that I would drink on a normal basis, but I also think that they're invaluable wines
Yes.
because they, when I was a kid, you know, I'm 19 and I'm like had a 21-year-old girlfriend and I said like, I got to learn about wine. Can you go buy me wine? And I gave her like $10 and she came back with one bottle and I go, like, one boy, this is an expensive bottle of wine, $10. Like, what do you think? I'm made out of money? And I drank the wine. And I'm like, I don't even like this. I don't even remember what it was.
Okay.
But that's funny. Okay, so
Yeah.
so you get over. You're here. This is the Walnut Creek location that you're in.
Yes.
I see. And then you're there. You're kind of helping guide things.
Yeah.
I assume that the availability of the wines that you're used to, the caliber of the wines that you're used to in Spain is very different from what you have access to
Yes.
here at that time, right?
Yeah. At Berria and then at Mugarit, we had like availability of everything.
The best of the best.
The best of the best.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had like coupons. We had like we can like get any bottle that we
sick.
almost like want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which is now like a 2-star. How many stars does Coupon have?
I think it's like 2 or 3.
2, yeah. I think it's like 2 or 3. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so and then a telephoric is very different because you had to like you have a lot of like brands behind the restaurant, mainly one.
I see.
So you had like to use a lot of their wines.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like
Got to take care of your friends.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, my buddy, you know,
Yeah.
he's an investor, and we need to have his wine on the program.
Exactly. It's very good and like
yeah. I've seen things like that before. I've been in places like that.
yes.
And it's not my favorite, but at least there was some wiggle room, right? There's nothing like, again, without slamming Southern Glazers or NBC,
Yes.
there's nothing like going somewhere and seeing a list that's just like owned by one distributor, and they go like, oh, well, you know, we're getting deals on our spirits because we're buying the wines from the same people. When you don't care about the wine, we only want the spirits, or vice versa. You know, they're like, you go somewhere and the whole back bar is just Southern Glazers, and they go like, we buy all our wine from Southern Glazers, so we buy all our spirits from Southern Glazers. Like, it's a lot of extra work to kind of enrich your programs, right? But I think that in itself it's enriching, right?
Yes.
It's like you put in the work. It's like working the soil, right? You're like putting in time and effort to take care of it, and in time it'll take care of you too, right? It's kind of this holistic process. Cool. So then at some point you leave Telefreak, right?
Yes.
And how's that go? I mean, how did you make the jump to where you landed next?
Yeah.
Because it's quite different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was September of 2022, and I had some conversations with the kind of like the director of operations from Teleferic, and I have to be like, I have to think what,
Sure. Yeah, no,
what I
no,
would say,
no.
but I had like a few conversations saying like, I want more, right?
Right.
I'm a very passionate person.
Yeah.
I think I can apport. I can give you a lot of more, and
I can be a resource to you.
I can give a resource. Yeah. I'm not very motivated at this point right now. What we want to do, right? And their response, I didn't really like it. So I was for like a month kind of like thinking what I will do. I'm in the US, very far away from home, where I compromise myself to be here.
Right.
I told them, I gave them my word that I will work for them, right?
Yeah.
So I have a contract, I have everything. So I was like, what I do, right? So after thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to see if I find someone else and that I can give another opportunity to, because I really like it here. I met my girlfriend here. I was very good with her. I was like living like these new things for me that I love it. So I was like, I want to stay, but I want to stay in a better place for me, or
Right.
what is for me
Yeah.
a better place, right? And doing some researches, I see this offer from A Tables, right? They were looking for a sommelier at that time, and I apply. Well, I look A Tables, right, and I see this stunning place, and I apply right away. And in the moment that I apply, I believe it was like 20 minutes later, I was in the library. I was studying. I think was studying for the 35 or something. I remember I was studying like Alsace or something, and I was like taking my break, so I was looking like different jobs, and I apply, and 20 minutes later, I receive an email. From the chef, from Floyd.
Yeah.
And saying like, "Hi, thank you so much for applying. I would love to connect with you and like chat about the position." And I respond right away, like, and it was like a back and forth of emails, like for maybe like 2 days, right?
Yeah.
And we sound both very excited.
Right.
Like,
It's great.
I was like, yes, I can do this. And he was like, okay, I can work for this. I was like, all right, let's do this. And we both like very, very excited until we met. And at that time I was still working at Teleferic. And when I first went to do the first interview with Floyd, I saw the dining room. I went through the elevator from the gate.
Oh, from the
gate.
Guest entrance.
Yeah, from the guest entrance. And I'm going up through the elevator, and I went to see the dining room. Chef was at the kitchen at that time. Someone else came to pick me up, and I see the hall stand, and I'm like, wow, this is stunning.
Yeah.
And then I see the wine cellar, I see all the tables. I'm starting to count the tables. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. The tables, like, they're very private. I'm like, wow, this is what I'm looking for, right? And then I had this conversation with Floyd for like 3 hours, right? We were speaking about like, we started to speak about like job things, and then we finished talking about like life things, you know, because
that's the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after I finished there, I remember calling my girlfriend and saying like, I found the place. I'm so excited. Like, I found the place where I want to work. And from that day, I got in contact with my sponsor of the visa, and I'm like, I'm in this situation. I'm not very comfortable where I'm working right now, but I think I found a place where I can feel comfortable. And I had to pay like a fee to move my visa to another place, and I'm like, I'm willing to pay any money, you know. I'm just like, I just want to like
It's hard to put a price on happiness.
Exactly.
8 Tables is a tasting menu restaurant located above China Live in San Francisco.
Yeah.
China Live is kind of a cool, multi-concept, very complex Chinese restaurant, right? A lot of Chinese restaurants in San Francisco have like the barbecue, or they have dim sum, or they have, you know, the bakeries.
Yeah.
And here is kind of like a one-stop shop. It's a bit elevated. It's not quite as mom and pop as a lot of the shops. Cold drinks bar located upstairs, another cool thing. But 8 Tables, I think, is really fascinating. 8 Tables was my first job in San Francisco.
Okay.
I came here. I was visiting my my girlfriend, now fiance, and I was working in Palm Springs, and in Palm Springs it gets too hot in the summer. Everything closes for like a month. It's like I hear about holiday in Europe, and that's what it reminds me of. But it's too hot, so you can't do anything. So I came to San Francisco, and I was just here for 2 weeks. And she goes like, "What are you gonna do?" I gotta work, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And she's like, "You should stage," and I go like, "What's stage?" Right? Like I've only worked in you know, cool restaurants, but stage is not really like a term that I was used to. And so I like applied to a couple places. She was telling me about Bistro X, was this great French place in the marina. It's unfortunately closed. I applied at, I don't know, a handful of places, and I got a response from 8 Tables stage. They liked me, And then he was like, he called me and he goes like, "Well, what are your plans for the next week and a half while you're here?" I go like, "I don't know." And he goes, "You want to work?" I was like, "I guess." He goes, "I could really use you." Okay. So I worked that week. I worked the next week, and he goes, "Okay, what's your schedule next week?" I go like, "I got to go back to Southern California." And he goes like, "We could really use you." And so I had to go home and have a conversation with my girlfriend and I'd say like, "What do you think? Like, can we move in together while I get my feet under me? Like, what do you want to do?" And she said, she was like, "Let's do it." And so I worked with Tony Kim, who was one of your predecessors, and just a great guy, still a very close friend to this day. But Eight Tables is a stunning restaurant, and it's always been incredibly beautiful. I think cuisine-wise, it's not reconceptualized, but it's kind of morphed a bit over the time. When I started, it was like very traditional Chinese food, and now it's kind of transitioned a bit more into like elevated. It's still very Chinese, right? But it's not as kind of like, there's not as much sea cucumber, and like when I was there was a lot of things that normal like American consumers would come and eat and they'd be like, I don't know, it's not really, I don't really like that one. And now you can go, and if you're a seasoned diner, you can just like enjoy it. And I think when I first started, it was 13 courses or 14 courses or something absurd, right? And then you could add the supplementary courses. And it was like,
you went up to like
3.5, 4-hour dining experience. But yeah, and I've seen Chef Lloyd come in, and I've seen him change the menu, and I'm so excited. The food's great. And I've enjoyed the shifts that I've worked there, and I've gotten to work alongside you and meet you. And I think too, like the cool part is that in a way, when I started, the wine program had to fit within a certain cost, right? Anybody that's not familiar, your wine pairing program is a fixed cost. It's a supplement. You know, pay for the tasting menu. I think then it was $225, or maybe that's too much, but the wine pairing was like $125. So we had a lot of like really cool, interesting things that also weren't really expensive. So we were pouring like Hermit Ram, Skin Contact, Mueller Turgau for the Eight Immortal, the vegetable dish. And then we were pouring like, I don't know, we were pouring interesting things. We were pouring like Erziger Wirtsgarten Riesling, cabinet level for the Szechuan fish dish, right? But now you get to kind of like pilfer George's wines. And like when I went and I'm seeing the stuff you're pouring, I'm like, this is absurd, right? You're pouring like 2 vintages of Peter Michael Chardonnay side by side. You're pouring like, you know, Louisville Bartone and Louisville Ducasse, like same vintage, I think it was same vintage, right? And so I've kind of heard you discuss the idea of the pairing, and you're talking about kind of like, how do you phrase it? So kind of disassembling it, or tell me kind of like your inspiration for pairing the incredible wines that you're pouring for the pairing together. Like, what makes you want to pour the 2 wines together?
That's a very interesting question.
I just want to know how your brain works, because it's cool. In most places you go, you get 1 wine for 1 course or 1 wine for 2 courses. And when you come now, it's not an abbreviated menu, but it's smaller than it was, 5 courses. And you're doing basically like
right now, I think now we are offering 2 different, we're actually offering 3 different menus, right?
Wow, okay.
We want to kind of like touch every kind of like person.
Fit every need.
Right? So we are having a 4-course menu for $90.
Okay.
We're having a 6-course menu for $150.
Wow.
And we have a 9-course for $250.
Sick. Okay.
So we can like touch every person like budget.
That's awesome.
Right? So the pairings can like work the same way. We don't have a specific pairing for the 4 courses.
I see.
But I mean, we can make something, but
right.
We don't have anything written down. But for the 6 courses, we have a pairing that is $150. And then for the 9 course, we have one that is $250.
Okay.
So it's the same price for the food.
Right.
And the idea of all the pairings, I mean, when I work somewhere, I try to do the best experience in all terms, right? Since how I speak with the table, since how how is my management with the table, how I accompany them to any single pass or single everything,
every interaction
in the experience. So the wine pairing kind of like works in the same way. My idea is give the most excited experience that you're not used to, right?
Great.
And that you cannot find everywhere,
right,
or anywhere,
right,
right?
Yeah.
And for that, right now it's very difficult because right now restaurants are putting great things.
There's a lot of cool stuff out there.
There is a crazy things, and more like in the best restaurants in the world, you have like these amazing pairings where like you try the best wineries in the world, right? So you have to compete against that, right?
It's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
That's a big ask.
It's a big ask, yeah. So right now, for example, like I have like in the pairing, I have like maritime pairing, right? So I just pour things that are for a maritime climate, right? And the idea behind that is that I never seen a place where they offer you different pairings with different concepts, right? Like continental climate.
That's cool.
So you try like I don't know, like Rioja. You try some parts of Burgundy. You try some parts of Napa, right? And like you try all wines from different countries, but with the same climate.
Wow.
Right? Or like tropical climates.
Right.
Or like I don't know, maritime and continent.
Yeah.
Or like everything. Or like with the vintages, it's kind of like the same. It's kind of like two different producers, maybe from the same region, same vintage, but every producer have their own style of produce the wine. So it's very interesting to see how with a very similar terroir, just with the hands-on, they can produce completely different wines.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, like a Chardonnay from Burgundy, Angros, against a Chardonnay from Sonoma, and you have like a Freeman or something from same vintage, but two different climates competing against each other.
Right. Yeah.
And you can like kind of explain why the Chardonnay from Sonoma is buttery or like why is this style and why the Burgundy is this style, and they can like learn about the difference between both Chardonnays. So my idea with the pairing and with the wine program is to teach the guest and give them an experience that they cannot find anywhere, right?
Yeah, I think that's sick because like when I've gone places and when I get the wine pairing, like I'm always excited and I always get to taste really cool stuff, right? And like they'll pour it for you, they'll explain it, they'll explain kind of like why it's part of the pairing, and obviously like you can ask as much as you want, but most of the time they're just like picking something that pairs with the course. It's like that A and B. You're connecting the dots, right? And so it's really cool to kind of think how much deeper you're thinking about it. Not that they're not thinking about it deep, but like you're also trying to kind of like push the envelope, which I think is important, especially when you're working with like, not that Chinese food is incredibly hard to pair with, but like there's not a lot of great examples out there for you, right? Like you can look up California cuisine, Michelin pairing for, uni toast or avocado, grilled avocado dish. And there's a lot of, not copy paste, but there's a lot of riffs on it. And there's not a lot of this kind of elevated Chinese cuisine that people are being exposed to as often, I guess, is kind of how I want to say that. So I guess you kind of have to think outside the box, right?
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because for me, the last thing that I think about is to pair with the food. Of course I always have it in mind, and I don't want to like destroy any experience, but I always think first about the experience, about the wine and how the wine experience will be, and then I think about how will be the experience with the food, right? I think when someone goes to a restaurant and prepare for the food and then they choose the wine pairing is because they want to live an experience with the wine, right?
Yeah.
And it's like right now that we have, for example, Halsey just arrived. There's a very motivated guy from Spain. He's studying the same school that I study.
Oh, okay, cool.
And he was like, oh, like we had this dish, and like I tried this wine, and I think the acidity of this wine, it can be very good with this food. I'm like, oh, I think that's great.
Yeah.
But why we are putting that? Oh, because the acidity with the food.
Right.
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, what is the history of the wine? Like,
Right,
what is the
right.
history of like behind that?
Yeah.
Oh, because the acidity with the food. I'm like,
Right.
okay, forget about
We
the
got to
acidity.
think a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Forget
That's
about the
funny.
acidity. Like,
Yeah.
just make an experience. And right now, he's crushing it. He's just
Yeah.
like, he comes with this wine, and he's like, why we don't put this 2013 with this? And I'm like, that's what I want. Like,
Yeah,
you're good.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so cool. I think, I think for me, so the only kind of tasting menus I've ever worked at was at 8 Tables, and then I worked for a while at Quinn's, right? And often in settings, Tony Kim is, I'm a huge fan of him, and he was always very much a mentor to me, but I don't know that I necessarily like ask the right questions to understand. But I think, for people that haven't worked in tasting menus, or even for people that have and maybe haven't been on the wine team, you don't really kind of like think about how deep it is, right? Like, one of my favorite things, the more I learned about wine, the more I learned to appreciate John Lancaster's list at Boulevard, which is my crown jewel on my resume. That's the most proud of anywhere I've worked is to work for John Lancaster, and I think the world of him. But you'll go sometimes and you'll see like two wines poured by the glass, and he doesn't like say anything, and nobody says anything, but one is the son and one is the father.
Wow.
Or he'll pour, like oh God, I wish I could remember what it was. It was like Coupe and Lindquist, because Bob Lindquist used to work at Coupe, right? And so like, it's funny to see kind of like this spider web effect that he has of all these people that have kind of like worked with each other, or related, or cousins, or whatever, and to kind of see how it's kind of like an inside joke, right? And you have to kind of like know how to read it to understand it. And I think that's cool, and at least you would be willing to kind of like explain it to people, and like, this is why I'm doing it, right? But I think that's also a different setting, much more intimate. Whereas like Boulevard, I mean, before the pandemic, we were doing like 350 covers a night.
Oh, wow.
And we was very busy. And John runs that whole floor by himself.
Wow.
And when I would work, I would do it by myself too. But he would get the Monday to Friday, like all the business travelers, and I would get like the Saturday, Sunday, like families. So I get a lot of corkage and stuff like that, which is great. But he's out there. I'm like, guess what I sold last night? And I'm like, $300 bottle, and he's like, oh, I sold a couple $1,000 bottles, and I'm just like, oh, great. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, so you're loving San Francisco life. Working with the wine program that you're working with has got to be pretty cool compared to, not that Spanish wine isn't deserving of respect, but like, you were in Spain. You were really exposed to Spanish wine. You were pouring all these dope, probably highly allocated here in America producers. Yeah. Then you came over to the U.S. You were working with a Spanish program again that was maybe slightly watered down because of, obviously, our import market isn't as rich, and also too kind of having the investor influence. And now you're working with stuff like you're pouring Peter Michael, you're pouring Bordeaux, you're pouring like stuff from all over. It's got to be, I mean, it's a world of fun. I mean, do you keep like a notebook, or you just kind of like retaining all the information? Like, how do you remember what the 13 Peter Michael was showing, like Peter Michael Shard was showing like 6 months ago? You just kind of memorize it all?
No, we have a document.
I see.
So every time that I open a bottle and it kind of like speaks to me,
I see.
I go to the computer. Like if I had time, I run to the computer and I'm like, this,
That's
this.
awesome.
And I go back to the service. I'm like, all right, let's go now. But of course, if I'm very busy at the end of the night, I try to write everything down. Or if not, I share all the information. I just kind of like open the bottle and I'm like, I try, it speaks to me and I'm like, hey, Martin, this one is like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you remember what I told you about the wine?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think to me, when I was at Boulevard, we would get to open like a lot of really cool wines, and people would bring in a lot of really cool wines and they'd share them with me. And I had like a notebook, and I would just write like 3 words for the nose and 3 words for the palate.
Okay.
And that's like all I had time for, you know, and it'd be like 75 Mayacamas. And I'm just like, just like really quick. And you know, I'd be over in the Somm station writing. It'd be like, you know, again, I'm like 280 cover night, and they're like, Chris, we need you. I'm like, I gotta remember this. Or they'd go to clean up at the end of the night, and I have like 7 wine glasses with this much wine left in. I'm like, I just need to taste it one more time. That's awesome. Okay, so now to come full circle. So I poured you a wine today. It's not a blind tasting wine because it's not necessarily fair. But really the question is, do you like this wine?
I love this wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this wine.
And I wanted to pour something cool for you, and I figured you've probably had this wine before, and I kept asking Bianca, like, this is my first guest that I'm pouring wine for. Like, maybe she doesn't want to drink Spanish wine, right? Like, she drinks all these crazy Spanish wines. You've had access to all these amazing Spanish wines before. So I tried to kind of like shuffle the deck as much as I could and kind of like bring on something really fun and interesting. And
is White Rioja?
Kind of. Yeah, this is, again, not necessarily blindable, but I'm not sure if you've had this wine before, but the Atlantida Blanco from Alberto Orte.
This is very good.
Vigiera, is that the variety, right?
Vigiera.
It's 100%. And it was almost an extinct variety that they would use a lot to make Manzanilla sherry over in Cadiz.
Wow.
And so
This is great.
yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
of
bringing
course.
this.
Yeah. I in my head, I was thinking like, you know, I have a bottle of like C. Salbarino floating around. And I was like, yeah, but I've sold you some of that. So like we could drink that anytime, right? But to me, I was thinking like, what's fun? What's interesting? I wanted to find a grape that was like a little less run of the mill. And, you know, it was planted in 13. The vines are fairly new. And then this is from Alberto Orte's like hometown. This is where he's from. He's from Cadiz. And this is a grape that was important when he was a kid, fell out of favor pretty dramatically. And now they've like brought it back. Well, he has like a 1 hectare plot. And that's where this wine comes from. He makes this, and he makes the Vara y Pulgar wine. It's 100% Tintilla, I think. And let's see, how do I pour around the mic? Do you need another little splash?
Yes, please.
Bring the temp down for you.
Thank you.
For anybody looking, here we go. 21 Atlantida Blanco. Yeah, I think, to me, I'm not sure how you feel about this statement. This will be my hot take, I guess. I think that in a lot of senses, people will taste wine. I think I hear about this more with Italian wine, and they'll say like, I really wish I had food with this wine.
Okay.
But I kind of feel like I can just drink a wine and appreciate the wine for what it is and fantasize about what I would pair it with.
Yes.
But I mean, do you like to just kind of, are you enjoying this? Do you think it would be better with food, or do you think it's kind of just great?
I think it's better for itself.
Yeah, by itself.
I think it's better for itself.
It'd be a hard one to pair with. I mean, I think like on the nose, it has that like kind of like apricot-y, almondy kind of characteristic to it, right? It kind of, I mean, it reminds me of Manzanilla sherry. It has that like raisiny kind of character. On the palate, it's like kind of weighty, kind of salty, kind of like lemon pith kind of character to it. But it fades pretty fast, which I think I really like. I think I like that out of most whites from Spain that at least I've crossed paths with can have that really amazing like aromatic component and kind of that really great like upfront palate weight. And then they can kind of just dissipate. Not that that's good or bad. It's just kind of like what I think I've come to know. Like a white Rioja, for example. I mean, there's so many, but and there's, I guess, lots of different styles too, but like one of my favorite, which was also from Alberto Orte, is La Antigua.
Antiguas.
And I love that wine, and he holds all those wines back, and I think current vintage is like 17.
Yeah.
And you know, so you're getting in the market like a 7-year-old white Rioja, and the only other producer, well, I shouldn't say that, you'd be the professional in this, but the only other producer that I can think of off the top of my head that's intentionally holding wines back like that is like Lopez de Heredia.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe let's just talk on a couple big name producers, and if you think the dollars are worth it. This is something I'm trying to start doing, is eventually wine rating. And I'm going to focus on like 3 sectors when I do it, is like classic. Is this wine a classic representation? Do I like the wine? 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5. And then like the cost for quality ratio.
Okay.
So you've probably had the opportunity to taste this wine more than I have. But when we're talking about like top, like some of the most expensive producers in Spain that I can think of, I'm thinking of like Vega Sicilia. I'm thinking of like Castilla Gay.
Yeah.
Do you think that those wines at that price range are still worth it compared to, let's say, 5-10 years ago? Or they're probably less in Spain because you're not paying importation and all of those things.
Yeah.
But
I think they're worth it at Spanish price. I don't think they're worth it at American price.
not as much, right?
Yeah. I was like not understanding what was going on when the first time that I bought Unico here. I think it was like $900 or something.
Yeah.
And it was, I bought Unico in 2016. Oh, sorry, in August of last year, right? And in September, I went to Spain. And I went to a wine bar in Galicia, and I drink some Unico with my mom. And I bought a bottle of Unico for $200.
Yeah.
And I drink Unico with my mom, full bottle for $200, and then I buy it here for a restaurant for $900.
Yeah.
It was.
It's nuts.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth it. Yes. No American price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think there's like this, you know, there's this new thing right now. It's not new, I guess, but it just feels like I've been focusing on it more. But we had Parkerization here, right? Robert Parker would give something 100 points. Everybody would try to make something that style. But I feel like what we're dealing with now, especially since the pandemic, is rarefication. You know, these wines have become harder and harder to get.
Yeah.
Or not. They're just making the same amount they've always made, and more people want them.
Yeah.
And so the demand is higher, so now the cost is higher. I mean, I was putting Vega Sicilia on the list, the Unico on the list at Ozumo, right at that 900 price point.
Yes.
And like, people would still buy it. I was shocked that, you know, that it was going to be that expensive, but people would still buy it. Castilla Gay, same thing, I think.
Yeah.
God, I wish I could remember. I think I had 2015 on, and I think I had it at like 385. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, you know, lucky enough to taste the wine, but like, I think we're in this like really great sweet spot.
Yes.
We're here in America. We're in San Francisco. We're so close to many great wine growing regions. Like, you know, the whole Contra Costa area is kicking off. Sonoma, Napa, Mendocino, you know, Anderson Valley. Kind of like work your way up the coast.
Yeah.
We've got Washington, we've got Oregon, we've got all the Santa Barbara producers. Everything on the West Coast is so incredible. And alternatively, we're not paying import costs on those wines. So we're getting that. And then in a lot of these cases, like, you're getting first pick. Like, I don't think I ever saw bottles of Peter Michael in Texas, but they don't want to play the allocation games, or they don't want to wait, you know, for 6 months until the next Burgundy release allocation comes in, or they want wine that has age on it. You know, there's all these factors that are happening that, like, we're so lucky to live in San Francisco and to have the access to the wines that we do, that, like, I don't know, I sit back and I think about it sometimes, and I always think that I knew a lot back then, but then I think about how much I've learned in the last 6 years in San Francisco, even with basically being shut down for a year with the pandemic. And I'm just like, I don't know that it's it's equitable, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
working in the Palm Springs market for 6 months, working in the Texas market for 10
Yeah.
years is not the same thing as working in San Francisco. It's probably drastically different from working in Basque.
Yes.
It's probably drastically different. I mean, even Galicia, I
Yes.
imagine, has a very rich wine culture. And I just feel, yeah, I feel lucky. I feel lucky.
Of course.
I feel lucky to be here in San Francisco. I
Yes.
feel lucky to be sitting here talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Let's see. Well, we'll see how much battery we can get left
right.
out of this. Do you have any closing comments? Do you have anything you like want to say? Any words of wisdom to share to people about pairing with Chinese food or working at 14 in the restaurant industry or the amazing wines of Spain?
Yeah. I don't know. Just for all the young fellows that are out there that follow your dreams.
Follow your dreams.
Yes, and just work hard
Yeah.
as much as you can.
Yeah.
And be disciplined, and yeah, that everything counts, you know. And more here, like I feel like everyone can like look for more money wise that happiness
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and happiness, money, everything like will come.
Yeah.
And just work hard,
Yeah.
be disciplined,
Yeah.
and with the time everything will come.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's wrap it up.
Chris.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Let's turn this thing on.